I think the best people age the hardest. You know, I think Obama was probably like a very idealistic young man who really wanted to change the world.
Yeah.
And that dude aged more than anybody.
Well, in 2000,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh,
who
you
aged the
see
least? Trump.
Yeah.
Trump just fucking.
This is something that
He just brushed that shit off his shoulders like it was nothing.
This is something that Derek said to me in like 2018 once. We were talking about. He's like, I don't know, because he's not a big politics guy, but it's like, I don't know if I trust Trump. His hair's not getting gray. What kind of politician doesn't get gray hairs?
Well, the hair itself, I mean, he makes fun of his own hair. He was on stage talking about his comb over.
Yeah, he's funny.
He does stand up. He's doing stand up. Regardless of what you think about him, foreign policy, economics, regardless, the guy is doing stand up.
He can work a room.
Well, that's why none of them can fuck with him, because he can go on a podcast easy. Because he does these stadiums where he just goes out and starts talking shit. He does Biden impressions. He does Biden wander around the room. He doesn't know where he is. He's funny, man. Okay, and the problem is he does it all the time, so he's got an act. He's basically like a comic, like in a lot of ways. That's the problem. It's like these other people they have canned speeches that are written by a bunch of people that have this like really well-worded, explanation of what's wrong with the world, what's wrong with the country, and what they're going to do. But it's not them. It's not them. That's why they all fall apart when they're talking and, they just don't have any idea what the question's going to be. That's why they had to be protected. All of them have to be protected from themselves.
Right.
Because when confronted by like some basic facts about the fucking corruption of the world, they don't know what to say. And they crumble. And Trump just starts talking shit. He just starts talking shit. Oh, they're all corrupt. He just starts going into it and talking about crooked Hillary and this and that, and they said this and they said that.
Yeah, it's just him saying what's on his mind, regardless of whether or not, people like fact check him or whatever. I think people are just used to that now. Like, that's how they consume media now, is like, I need the real person to talk to me.
Yes. It's also like, they're like, oh, he's a crazy person. I'm like, yeah. That's the only kind of person that would survive what you try to do to him.
Right.
That's the only kind of guy that gets through. Like, you want a perfect person? A perfect person morally falls apart by the time they've been indicted and they've 34 counts, felony counts. Like, your whole body's just destroyed by the stress of you possibly going to jail for the rest of your life. You have to be a fucking insane person to ride that out and not look like anything even happened. Then you get shot.
Yeah.
You get up after you got shot. You're fucking bleeding from your ear and you go fight, fight, fight. You got to be a crazy person to get through these. He's a nightmare for anybody that's trying to rig a system. Like, that guy's the nightmare. He's the final boss of fuck you. You know?
Yeah. And also to want like a good guy to be your president is kind of like a good guy is your neighbor. Like, there's
well, it would be nice if we could get a good guy to be president.
I don't think they would want that job.
No, they wouldn't want that job.
No, they wouldn't want that job. There's no way. That's an awful job.
I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he's just... I think he's like a lot of people that just want success. They want a certain kind of success, and also they want a certain kind of success publicly. They want everybody to know that they're successful. Like, that's a hyper competitive person that's locked into a very specific kind of game. Is the game of, look at all the shit I got.
Right.
Look at all the power I have. Look at all the shit I got. And they're all playing that game. They're just playing that game sneaky. They're playing that game talking about the importance of addressing climate change and, all sorts of weird shit. They're talking about, but they're all playing the same goddamn game.
They're in a legacy game. They want to see how long can my name last post me dying. Like, that's a type of person.
Bro, it's what happens with cults. It's what happens with everything. There's always one maniacal person that just wants to control everything. When you're talking about, one of the criticisms of your administration was with tax cuts and with tariffs, you increased the deficit. So what was the strategy behind that? And did you think it was going to increase the deficit by a substantial amount?
Okay. We were ready to rock. It was all, I had a bad system. We had horrible tax policy. I made it great with a much lower tax rate. So I took it from almost 40% down to 21%. Now I'm bringing it from 21 down to 15, but only if you make your product in the United States, which is great. People call me, they said, what a great idea. Nobody ever heard of that before. I don't care if they make the product in Japan. Why should I give them? So it's at 21. At 21, in the first year, we took in much more revenue than we did at almost 40. Think of that. It inspired. Now, we had other things, too. We were able to get people to bring back their money. You couldn't bring back your money. If you had money in Europe, like Apple, Apple had many billions of dollars outside. They couldn't bring it. There was no way to bring it back in. The bureaucracy, the documents, the whole thing. And also the tax was too high. They wanted like half of it or something. Nobody's going to do that. So they leave their money in Japan and they spend their money there. That was part of what I did. The money came pouring back in. Apple took in hundreds of billions of dollars. They brought it back from overseas. They brought it in.
So how does the deficit increase because of that?
So what happened is this. We were ready to rock and roll, and then we had the COVID thing, and we had to focus on that. And if we didn't give some businesses a hand, you would have had a depression like in 1929. But we were ready to start. We would have very shortly been paying off debt. We have $35 trillion in debt. And I'll never forget it. It was talking about from, the standpoint of being in office. I'm in the Oval Office, and I have John McLaughlin and Fabrizio. They're two very good pollsters, probably, I don't know, I would say the two best, who knows, but very good pollsters. And we're starting to think about running for a second term. And we had the greatest economy in history. Never has there been an economy like
And you
this.
attribute that to lowering taxes
a lot
and
of
tariffs.
Two things. And also I cut regulations more than anybody else. And if I asked many of the businessmen, from the big companies, the guys running the big companies, I'd say, so if you had your choice, you've had it now for a long time, what's more important to you, the tax cuts, you paid less tax, or the regulation cuts? Every one of them said the regulation cuts meant more. Who would think that, right? Because you don't equate it to dollars, but it actually is more dollars. We had it going, and then we just had to focus on something else. But they were sitting there, these two pollsters were sitting there, and they said, sir, if George Washington came back and Abraham Lincoln was his VP as opposed to Waltz, how bad is he, by the way? But if Abraham Lincoln was his VP, they couldn't beat you. And I'll never forget it. The following day, they said, something's happening in China, sir. Could we meet? I said, what's happening? People are dying. And it was all around the Wuhan lab, by the way. There are pictures with little lines, their body bags, all around the Wuhan lab. And I always said that from the beginning, Joe. It was, they tried to say, first they said it was France, and they blamed everybody.
Right.
But then they say it was bats from a cave 2,000 miles away. So we got hit with that. And despite that, we had the best economy. And when I gave it over, the stock market was higher than it was pre-COVID. I mean, nobody could even believe it. But we saved it. And we were helping businesses. They were dying. They were dying.
So it's your belief that if you had a second term, given the policies in place, the way the economy was booming, that you would have been able to pay off a lot of the debt. And that was the strategy. If we didn't have COVID, we would have been paying off debt, and we would have had, and don't forget, by growth, the word growth is actually more important in a way, because you could have the same debt, but if you doubled your growth, all of a sudden you're under-levered. But still, we should pay off debt. If you viewed this $35 trillion right now, it's a lot. But if you look at the asset value, if you looked at it purely as an asset value, we have oil underground, we have water, we have mountains, the assets are so enormous. But regardless of that, we've got $35 trillion in debt, we should pay it off. And we would have started paying off debt and probably even given further tax reductions. I want to get it down to 15%. We're going to do more business. But when you get hit with a COVID, everything stops, and you have to keep these businesses alive. The businesses were dying. They were just dying. This country was going to die. Are there influences outside of environmental that keep people from wanting to drill for oil and frack and do those sort of things, outside of the environmental concerns, which are legitimate, of course?
No,
but are there other influences that may be over accentuate or over exaggerate these environmental effects? Are people being influenced in a way where they're trying to keep us from producing American oil?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the environmental is the biggest tool for stopping growth, the biggest tool. The other is regulation. And if you speak to Elon, he said the regulation now to send a rocket up to anywhere, even if you do everything, it's becoming impossible. But they use environmental in order to get people not to do anything. And sometimes I say, I look at some of I know the environmental stuff better because I had to build buildings in New York. I had to do environmental impact studies. And I would see some of these guys that I'd hire for a lot of money, environmentalists that would get you through the process. And they'd be up in Albany, that's the capital of New York, and they're up there trying to make it tougher for guys like me that were builders because they'd get paid more money. In other words, I had one guy, highly recommended. I was good at getting permits. I was one of the kings I was always very good. But the environmental stuff was always horrible. They could slow a project down 10 years, 15 years. I had a project in Louisiana, built big LNG plant. It was for 14 years. It was going to cost $18 billion, one of the biggest, like the Empire State Building, laying down on its side times 4. Massive on the coast, on the Gulf Coast. And they said, sir, they're going to give it up. I said, they shouldn't give it up. What's the problem? They can't get their environmental. They had environmental permits that would fill this whole room up to the ceiling. And they said there was one mistake on one little line. They want them to do it all over again. It's not going to happen. And I got them their permit instantly. And they built the plant. It's massive.
So when you're saying that, there's people that are making money by making it difficult.
Yeah.
Are you talking about lawyers?
No, I'm talking about environmental consultants and lawyers.
Environmental consultants profit off of dragging out the process.
Absolutely.
If you enjoyed today's episode on JRE Plus, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you.